Back when I first made None of Your Business, I set a few guidelines for myself, and within those guidelines were topics and varieties of videos I felt I could or probably shouldn't make. Specifically, one of those taboo videos being anime shows I hate that everyone else likes. To me, that topic sounds like a disaster waiting to strike. Think about it. If I even tried to start going into why I hate these shows, I'd have to make a damn good case, and put in a lot of research just to deliver my points, and failing to do so would only make me look like a total jackass. And as you may notice by my current upload schedule, I don't have anywhere near that kind of time, due to the stress of my job, and putting these videos together constantly getting in the way. So instead, I decided to try the closest thing I could from the topic, by going into the top 10 anime that were better than I expected. Also known as anime shows everyone likes, which I thought I was gonna hate, but that's not as good of a title. In the past, I didn't have any thoughts on a majority of these shows, and the thoughts I did have were mostly negative. But one way or another, I went into them, and then got into them. This kind of list was a little more different than what I've uploaded in the past. For one thing, I normally ask for suggestions on what to feature on these lists, but I didn't do that this time, since this list is more personal than the others so far. Also, this needed a special ranking, so I featured these shows by how I felt about them at first in relation to now. Right, so let's get to it. Oh Maidens in Your Savage Season. I first heard of this show after a friend recommended it to me, and as he described it, he used Shimonetta for comparison. And because of that, I got a little worried at first, cause if I'm gonna be honest, I was never really a fan of that show. I gave it a fair try, and I could never finish it. I'm going more into this later, but I usually have mixed feelings on shows that are jam-packed with dirty jokes, especially Shimonetta. At best, it got a slight laugh out of me, but only once in a while, and at worst, made me lose my lunch. Thankfully, this show is nowhere near the boundaries of that show. It's not as sexual as I was afraid it was going to be anyway. It's more like romance with a bit of dirty material on the side. These characters are so charming, well, most of them at least. The story may be a bit calm, but in some ways, that can help people relate to what the characters are going through. And I know for certain that we all felt this way at least once in our lives. Even though there's a noticeable amount of shock humor, I'm not complaining, since it does what it's supposed to do most of the time, and never really gets out of hand. I can kinda see why someone wouldn't like this show, but it's worth checking out if you're in the mood for a chill slice of life story. At least, I prefer to think of it as chill, mostly because mentioning any terms of heat with this kind of show rubs me the wrong way. Zombieland Saga. I've claimed before that I'm a fan of musicals, but I'm usually more toward the movies, not so much the shows. And that's the first surprise about this show, that it's musical based, but I'll go more into that later. So at first glance, you might see a bunch of teen girls singing and dancing on stage, and as a result, you might think this is just gonna be your average teen idol music show, right?
Wrong.
These are no ordinary girls. They're zombies, and they're touring all over the place, performing concerts and using their music talent for the promotion of others, as well as their own. And they're pretty enjoyable songs too. My personal favorite was the Tory Drive-In jingle, and as weird as the story sounds, it still finds ways to stay interesting. As the show goes on, you get to learn all about the characters, except for Tai Yamada. Shame too, I would have loved to know what she's been going through. It's a short, but surprisingly fun show to watch. Also, I'm gonna be saying this a few times throughout the video, but supposedly, there's a second season coming out for this show. And I'm looking forward to it. It's gonna be great to see the group together again, going around singing like they used to do, or I hope that's what they're going to be doing. That's what I really liked about the first season. Well, regardless of what happens, I'll watch it anyway. I loved the first season that much, so I figured, why not? Panty and Stocking. Let's just say my first experience with the show was interesting. I first heard of the show after a friend of mine decided to show me a few episodes, back when the show was brand new, and we were only 12 back then, so you could imagine the outcome. But as the years went on, I naturally matured. Then back in 2017, I was reminded of the show's existence, and I decided to take another crack at it. And I found myself having a pretty good time. The animation is among the most appealing and unique that I've seen. I'm surprised the style isn't used more often. The only other show I've seen that comes close to this was Space Patrol Lulico. So the Anarchy Sisters, Panty and Stocking have been banished from heaven, and now they have to find their way back. And to get back in, they need enough heaven coins, which they get from blowing ghosts up.
I love this plan!
It's a simple concept, and yet so much was made from it. The writers managed to make so many enjoyable episodes. When an episode gets good, it gets amazing. But then there were the episodes I didn't find as good. And that's why the show wasn't any higher on the list. As much as I liked this show, there were some episodes I never liked that much. And they really show in comparison to the episodes I did enjoy. Some of these episodes I found kinda bland or awkward or just flat out disgusting. But then there were the episodes I did like. Those are among the best episodes I've seen in any anime. They were hilarious, badass, or even rather touching. True love is a trope I would have never seen coming with this kind of show, and they still managed to make it work. There's no doubt in my mind that everyone who's seen the show will remember the season finale. There was much more at stake this time, and boy, what a cliffhanger.
But surprise, I'm actually a demon.
It really gets me looking forward to seeing what's coming in season 2. In fact, let's see what happens. Damn it! Why do you do this to me? Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid. In general, I always had mixed feelings on dragons. I have respect for the traditional dragons, but aside from that, I never really saw the appeal toward them, regardless of whether or not they were sexualized. Human dragons, on the other hand, I never thought I needed that in my life. Kobayashi may be pretty likable, but it's all the dragon people and their different personalities that really got me hooked in. Toru and Fafnir are pretty amusing, kinda simply adorable, almost practically built from waifu material, and Lukoa's...
Oh, that's not right.
The story's simple, but still found ways to grab my attention. Toru's the first dragon introduced, and the others joined in during later episodes, and they all fit in well with the story. They find their own places to live, and humans to interact with, and they adapt rather well. And maybe I'm the only one who thinks this, but the animation has a huge resemblance to New Game, despite the fact that they were made by 2 different studios. I just can't help but see a connection within the characters' designs, facial expressions, and animation in general. And just like Zombieland Saga, there's a 2nd season coming out later this year. And all this time, I thought they forgot about that show, but I'm certainly looking forward to this. I wonder how they're gonna pull the finale off, especially after seeing what they gave us in the 1st season. The Promised Neverland. Go ahead and call me a Scrooge, but I tend to quickly lose interest with cartoons or anime that focus on children, especially at this age range. But they manage to grab my attention once in a while. This kind of show especially. These are no average kids. They quickly catch on to all threats heading their way. The story focuses on 3 kids in an orphanage, who find out that said orphanage is secretly a farm made for the purpose of human slaughter. Yikes! They're giving away children as a food source? That's awful! In more ways than one. It's basically Chicken Run, but without the comedy. Normally, I would never get this attached to a horror-themed show, especially one this dark. But I kept coming back. I just had to know what was gonna happen. And I really don't want to let too many spoilers out, but damn, did I hate Isabella. I knew from the moment I first saw her that she was gonna be bad news. And she does a lot of awful things throughout the show. At least we get to learn a bit about her in the season finale, which is pretty depressing, I admit, but it still doesn't justify her choices that much. And, just like Dragon Maid, we got a 2nd season this year, but I'm still debating if it's worth the watch, since I've been reading some bad reviews on the season, but at some point, I might end up watching it anyway, just to see where they go after the cliffhanger from season 1, and odds are I'm gonna regret it. My Hero Academia. For some reason, I've been watching the show at the slowest rate possible during the first 2 episodes. It would take months for me to get from one episode to another, but as I kept pushing myself to watch the next episode, I noticed the story continuously building up. Then at one point, I found myself watching multiple episodes a day, and enjoying it too. This show delivers a powerful message of perseverance and raising self-esteem, kinda like Little Witch Academia, but that show's not gonna be on the list because it felt too similar to this show, and I had a feeling I was gonna like it from the beginning. At the start, Deku comes off as a major wimp, and kind of annoying too, but he goes through a load of character development, at an impressively quick pace too. Or maybe that was just a happenstance and I just suddenly grew invested in him. Who knows? I guarantee that after the first half of season 1, there's at least one character you're gonna love. There are many to choose from, and all with unique personalities, and they really know how to keep the story interesting, with scenes that can either be strong and emotional, or just simply quirky. See what I did there? And just like with DuckTales, I just finished watching the first season as I'm recording this, and I'm sure as hell sticking around to see what the rest of the show has to offer. Yuri on Ice. Before watching the show, I already had a feeling this was going to involve figure skating. And that's pretty much it. Now jump ahead to when I finally decided to give the show a try, and the first thing I noticed was the opening. Sure, it may be kinda short, but it still manages to impress. The animation, despite it not being the same style as what's in the show, is still very appealing. And History Maker, the theme song, is one of the best theme songs I've heard for any show. It's catchy and full of hope, and that feeling helps set the mood for the show. Yuri's greatest desire is to become a figure skater, and so he's trained by Victor, who's also the temporary coach of Yuri's rival, Yurio. Just like Deku, Yuri's perseverance is a very strong and admirable character trait. As the show goes on, we're introduced to the other skaters, each one charming in their own way. Though my favorite is still Yurio. He's got strong motivation, character development, and some rather funny moments.
I want food! And the back!
As the story goes on, it builds up on each tournament, and that final round made some great closure. I never thought I was gonna like watching figure skating that much, even if it's fictional. Kill la Kill. This show took tropes I normally don't like, suggestive details like nudity and hefty fan service, or more gory scenes including blood and removing limbs and organs. Yeesh! But even with all these elements mixed in, there was always some charm to the show that made me smile, and that's pretty rare. But that's part of the Trigger charm. They have this special power that allows them to add appeal or whatever mood they want to any scene. Ryuko and Mako are straight up there with the best pairings I've ever seen. Trigger could make a whole spin-off with just those two, and no one would complain. I sure wouldn't. Ryuko's voiced by Erica Mendez, who also voiced Emma from the Promised Neverland. Oh, and Patrick Seitz is in the cast too. I'm no stranger to his work, and now here he is as the voice of Iragamagori! Throughout the first half of the show, Ryuko's trying to solve the mystery of who killed her dad, but the results were nothing like she expected. Again, I'm not going into any big spoilers. Go watch the show for yourself, mate. And it's so nice to see the development between certain characters, especially with Ryuko and Satsuki. This show was such a wonder to me. It was the show that really got me into Trigger in the first place, and I would love to see what kind of show they bring us next. Assassination Classroom. My god, I had low expectations for the show. Shame on me! First thing I'd like to bring up is the theme song. Admittedly, I wasn't too fond of it during the first few episodes, and that wave just looked a little off to me. But I started getting more into it with each passing episode. And then there's Kuro-sensei. Quick question, how would you feel if you were giving a slice of life anime show a try, and one of the first characters you saw looked something like this? Creeped out perhaps? I know I did, but after about 2 to 3 episodes, I started warming up to him. At first you'd think he was the bad guy, because everyone's trying to kill him, but there's a lot of good to him. He's goofy, encouraging, and extremely caring. And he's got one of the most, if not the most unique character design I've ever seen. Then there's Class 3E, which takes up a majority of the cast. Never before have I grown attached to this many characters in a single show. It's like almost every character has their own episode, and they never overstay their welcome. They're all so charming and memorable. My personal favorite being Ritsu, not just because she's cute, but she's the only AI character, which makes her more interesting. And just like with Panty and Stocking, I'd like to say a few things about that finale. You have no idea what this felt like for me. I knew they'd have to kill Kuro-sensei, but I never knew it was gonna end up this emotional. Like I said before, I normally keep my feelings behind closed doors, but that scene really took a lot out of me. I never felt this sad over an anime scene, or any scene in general. It took days before I finally got over this. So you can imagine my life got a little awkward during that time. Aww. And now... Aggretsuko. Why is it always the anthro-based media that surprises me the most? First I had the lowest expectations possible for Zootopia, but ended up loving it. And, big surprise, I ended up going through the same experience with this show. I first learned about it when it was brand new. As the store I'm working at was selling an assload of merchandise at the time, and I had major doubts back then. This is what people find cute? Is this Hello Kitty clone really as good as everyone's making it out to be? So one night I finally caved in and gave it a shot. It's one of the best shows I've ever watched. I can't believe I had any doubts toward this one. And for so long, too. The actors nail these characters' lines perfectly. No flaws at all. Erica Mendez strikes again, as Retsuko, the main lead. And this has got to be her best character by far. I never knew I'd love a red panda this much. And oh my god, is that Prozidi?
I made a request to have them taken down.
I'm not joking. It's really him. That's awesome. And speaking of the characters, their personalities are just about ideal. They really know how to set up the characters you're supposed to root for and supposed to hate. And sometimes in between. On top of that, the cast was directed by Patrick Seitz, which proves he's more than a great voice actor.
Protein!
The show focuses on Retsuko, as she's suffering through her accounting position. And in each season, she finds something that she thinks can help her quit her job, whether it's something simple like a crush, or a completely different position that leads her to success. I know exactly what Retsuko's feeling. I don't mean the pop star life and romance, but the rough job. I've been dealing with that lately, and I know just about everyone's been going through that at some point, if not currently.
Or can bite me.
I'm dying to see what we're gonna get in season 4. This show is a must-watch if you haven't seen it yet, and an easy watch too. Every episode's around 15 minutes long, except for the season finales which run for about 20 minutes. I'm truly stunned! I never thought I'd feel this way about a show with these character designs and this type of animation. Checking this show out has been one of the best experiences I've had in recent years. Whew, what a ride. Don't judge a book by its cover, as they say. Or an anime by its first few minutes, as I'm trying to say. It just goes to show that it takes a little push to discover something you might end up loving. As much as I loved Assassination Classroom, I had a feeling that wasn't gonna end up being number 1. Especially after I started watching Aggretsuko. Well, because of that, and many others have already said that it was a surprisingly good anime, so it would have been predictable keeping it in first place. But even after all this, I still get the feeling there are some shows I'm missing out on. So be sure to fill me in on any anime that you think I'm gonna like. Assuming you've seen up to this point, surely you have some grasp on my interests. And I'm in the mood to check out what's new. Or new to me. Or at the very least something to help me clear my mind when I need it. Alright, time to rest for the next few days, cause God knows I'm gonna need it. And I hope to see you all in the near future.